welcome to the PeakDay podcast, where we discuss fertility and natural family planning with our friends. Today's guests are Dr. Paul and Sarah Lovitz. Sarah and Paul have been married for 12 years, and they live in Colorado. Sarah has an undergraduate and master's degree in elementary education and taught for 10 years before staying home full-time to raise their children. Paul is a board-certified specialist in family medicine with a special interest in pediatric and adult medicine. Together they have 7 children, and they just welcomed their youngest child in April. Congratulations and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So Paul and Sarah, how did you two meet?
Yeah, so like all great love stories, we met at a bar. It was a country western music, what do I call it? Dance pavilion.
Yeah. So that's how we met. We caught each other's eye, and he asked me to dance, and then he asked to buy me a drink, and he got me water. And then we got to know each other a little bit over the phone, and then he left actually on a medical mission trip to Haiti and Honduras for over a month. So we communicated through email for that time period, and then he came back and we went on some more dates and met families, and then we were engaged that Easter. So we met in January and we were engaged on Easter. So it was a pretty quick turnaround, and then we were married the following summer. So we had a longer engagement to complete all of the marriage prep and all of our decisions of where to live and all of that.
Right.
Yeah, we met in our late 20s. So I was essentially about to I turned 30 right before we got married. So our courtship seemed kind of sped up, mostly and as we've reflected on this in the past, as we had gotten to a stage in our lives where we kind of knew what we wanted. There was an amount of experience behind us where we felt confident, especially in a type of early relationship of communication through email. It wasn't a physical relationship. It wasn't even a visual relationship for the most part. Right. I was crossing my fingers I hoped I remembered what she looked like when we actually went on a real date when I got back from my mission trips.
So what was your marriage prep like then?
Yes. So I remember we met with the deacon a couple times, and then we had a mentor couple, an older couple that actually lived just down the street from me. So that was nice. We actually just walked down and met with them, and they were, a few decades older and had grown children. So they had some really great advice, and they were people we saw at church on a Sunday basis. So we did that. And then we did all of our natural family planning courses online, and we pretty much just skipped it all. We just said, we know Paul's a doctor. We know it all. We don't need to do that.
So mind you, this is pre-Catholic conversion for me. So I had viewed this as a perhaps not necessary part of marriage, because it's just that thing we have to check the box off so we can get married in the church. Not fully comprehending what it would look like when I did convert a few years down the road, that we really didn't have a tremendously great grasp on natural family planning. We had not charted Sarah's cycles for years.
I never had. And we knew we wanted to have children right away, after we got married, because, Evan was already going to be 5 years old. So we wanted our kids as close as possible. So this was just, we didn't have to worry about it, because we were just going to have children and then stop after 2 or 3.
So we took a very roundabout way towards learning NFP. We learned symptomothermal. We learned Creighton. We got pregnant a number of times without really intending on being pregnant. And it took us until our 6th and 7th child were probably the first 2 since our first one together, where we actually said, hey, I think we're ready to have a baby. Okay. So it was a lot of growth.
Yes.
And our children's gaps between ages, Evan was 5 when Danielle was born. Well, then they were 29 months apart, 22 months apart, 15 months apart. Okay. And then we had to put the brakes on and said, we really need to learn this. Found a very excellent teaching couple here in Greeley. they did wonders for us because we had an infant in postpartum and really spent the time to walk through this with us to help us understand that self-control and sacrifice and what could be possible for us once we really took it to heart and learned it well. And we did.
So what was that point where you came to the decision that maybe birth control is not what we want to do during our marriage anymore?
Sure. So that happened after our first daughter was born. So she was born, we were married July 7th, and she was born May 7th, so 10 months later. So we were very blessed to get pregnant right after we were married. And we just went on the, low dose birth control right away because we didn't want to have kids too close. And so that's just what you did. That's what the OBs here recommended. And so we did that for a year, and then that's when Paul started to get into RCIA. And so it was when the baby was about, 14 or so months, we thought, this is our leap of faith. We need to trust it. And my OB at the time, she said, it's going to take you 6 months to really see normal cycles. And I was scared. I was scared that my husband, his needs weren't going to be met because we were going to have to be abstinent a lot more. And then we met with, a couple NFP couples, and they said, no, it's not going to be 6 months. It will be some time. But, so that was scary. That was scary in a world where we lived that you can be intimate with your husband whenever you want and not be afraid of getting pregnant. So that was really scary for me, just because I wanted to meet my husband's needs, but I wanted to also embrace the faith. So that's when it started. And thankfully he also, was going through his own conversion. So we were on different pages, but we were both changing.
As you talk with young couples and you share your struggles, how do you present it so that, it's realistic, but yet it's still encouraging?
I think it's great because we can go from the perspective of this is how we started, and it is possible to change.
And it's really scary, and that's a normal emotion, and it's okay to have those emotions of, I trust you, I love you, I know you're not going to cheat on me because, we can't be intimate if you're going to go to that extreme. But you think those things, in this world, that I married you and I mean my marriage vows, and we have matured since the day of our wedding to trust even more. But this is like pretty much the ultimate trust, of I trust you with my fertility. I trust you that you're going to be open to me, during the right times, if we are open to life or not open to life, if we're postponing. So we tell the couples that we mentor that you will never feel closer to your spouse than if you embrace it all the way. And if you hold back, that, that's your choice, but you will never feel that intimate connection with your spouse until you embrace the entire gamut of the church teachings. And it's just, that's just the way it is. I've never, felt closer to Paul than, us practicing.
After you learned about the beauty of natural family planning, did your views on having children change?
Absolutely. I think every month, when you make that choice of whether you're going to be open or not to life, and you want to be with your spouse, you really think about, what is the reason to postpone right now? Is it are we financially stable? Are we mentally stable? Are we, and it's like when you say yes, 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 then it's like, then what is our excuse, to hold back from each other in this gift that God has given us? So we've definitely been more open, and I think on our sixth child, we felt more done. The more children we've had, it's like, okay, we're feeling more done, and then you space them out a little bit more, that you need to get, make sure everyone's needs are being met. And our third child has type 1 diabetes, and so that's kind of another child in itself, that you're up with at night, and it's a constant care thing. but we always kind of joke, it's like, well, we're already up with diabetes. We might as well be up with an infant. So.
So have you had any times where postponing was necessary for your health, Sarah?
Yes, I had some abnormal cells on my cervix for many years. So we went through a lot of different procedures to get rid of those for the pre-cervical cancers. So we did postpone for a while there, but in the end, it was really pregnancy that healed me. The OB doctors had said, your cervix probably won't be able to hold a baby because we've done these procedures on it, and my cervix did just fine. So, and I've had, 3 babies since then. So, that was when we did. And then we thought we should postpone. So when our son was diagnosed with diabetes, we were 6 months pregnant with our 4th child. And so we thought we should probably postpone, to take care of him. And then that's when we ended up having our 2 kids that are 15 months apart. So we actually, we didn't postpone as long there. But then after that, we knew we would need more space just to kind of catch our breath, because we had newly diagnosed diabetes and pretty much 2 babies and a puppy. So we knew we should, for all of our sanity, slow down a little bit. So
sure. So, Paul, knowing the consequences and the impact of using artificial hormones, as a couple, how do you share that in your practice?
It's fine. I was talking to Sarah about this earlier, and one of the things you notice is it's easy to tell someone, take this and call me if you have a problem. It's a fast conversation. Gets people what they want, not a lot of stress. But the difficult conversation is explaining physiologically what's happening to you, to a human being, when you use these things. And it's physiologic, it's psychologic. And helping people understand that, especially when that's the primary reason that they're contacting you and they want to, or the thing that they really want to talk or obtain, it's not a fast conversation. And it's not one that's reimbursed very well, but it's one that's necessary to have, and I recognize that. And I thankfully work in an environment where I get to be my own boss, and I'm in a private practice that owns itself, and I have partners that are fully understanding of this. And if I say, look, this is not something I'm going to prescribe, especially not without a lot of lecture, they are okay with this. And and I have other Catholic providers in my practice that, while we're not a completely Catholic institution where I work, it's still one that recognizes the individual provider's beliefs and whether it's a comfort level or just a general obstinance of this is not something I'm willing to do. That's been a great blessing to be a part of that, because I know plenty of my Catholic colleagues that's not something they get to choose. And I pray for them. I feel bad for them, and I tell them come join my practice. So. But it's helpful to be able to relate my own experience with it, to tell, especially, as a 40-something male provider, I don't have a lot of teenage girls that choose to come see me as their primary care provider, but the ones that I do get to hear all about how you can understand your health so much by just knowing what's happening inside your body.
So you experienced postpartum depression. Was this the first time that you had postpartum depression, and what were your thoughts on that?
Yes, it was. I was always aware of it, and I never really feel like I even had the baby blues or was really even that emotional after the other children were born. I was always happy and sometimes, tearful happy, but there just was a lot going on. So that kind of masked my emotions for a few weeks of, is this normal or is this, more? And I was crying a lot more. And I noticed, every time someone would ask me, well, how are you doing? Which is great that more people ask, because they always ask how the baby's doing. And
Sure.
they would ask, how am I doing? Like the preschool teacher and the neighbors. And every time someone would ask me, I would just start crying and say, don't ask. And I couldn't verbalize what I was doing or how I was feeling. And then
Sure.
my 5-year-old preschooler, she said, Mom, every time you see Grandma, you cry. Because every time my mom would come over, I would just kind of just lose it. So I knew my emotions were definitely stronger, but what really was my big flag where I realized there was a problem was I couldn't think clearly. So that's what really was my flag. And then I started kind of researching, and then I reached out to one of our close friends and CCL, or symptothermal teachers, and said, what is happening? And she said, you definitely, have postpartum depression, and you need some progesterone. You feel much better with some progesterone. And so we went that route, and I got an appointment with a provider that supports this, our NFP methods, and is Catholic. So it was scary. It was a scary time because I had never experienced it, and
it was hard because from my perspective, it was trying to figure out how much of this is stress from postpartum, is the physical toll on her, is the fatigue and the tiredness. And thankfully we had a baby that really wasn't waking up much at night. She's been a very good baby. And how much this was still just the trouble and struggle of running the household, because I normally take some time off after our babies. But again, because I'm self-employed, I have to go back to work at some point in time. And when I go back, there's, again, an anticipated time of struggle. And I was certainly misinterpreting how much of that was due to Sarah's mental state. And I was watching and I'm trying to think I was being careful with it. And obviously I was missing a few things. And as soon as we got to put a name to it, though, and I think when Sarah finally came to that realization and could be open about that, that turned a corner in and of itself. Just naming it and say, well, here's what it is, and say, this is not you. This is not an irreversible thing. This is something that we can manage and we can help. And how are we going to help this? And then that starts the ball rolling of, let's start here. And once we've done this, what else can we do? Let's do this. What can we do differently in our household to make this not so stressful? Can I do something differently from my work schedule? And do the kids need to be doing these extra things? And are we doing these things because it's beneficial for our family, or just to say we did it? And once we really started to look at that, that shade kind of started to lift a little.
Thank you so much for being on the PeakDay podcast and sharing your life with us a little bit.
Yes, thank you.